When we look up at the night sky, something stirs within us, a recognition, perhaps, that we are both infinitesimally small and infinitely connected to everything around us. This feeling isn't just poetic. It might be the whisper of your soul, remembering what it once knew. Edgar Cayce, often called the sleeping prophet, spoke extensively about how our souls travel through multiple lifetimes, each one an opportunity for growth and understanding. But he also warned of something that many of us experience: the feeling of being caught in repeating patterns, unable to progress spiritually despite our best efforts. Have you ever felt like you're facing the same challenges over and over? Different circumstances, different people, but somehow the same lesson. This isn't coincidence. According to Cayce's readings, this repetition might be what some call a soul trap, a karmic pattern that keeps us bound to certain experiences until we fully understand and transcend them. In the quiet neighborhoods of Middle America, from the suburbs of Chicago to the rural communities of Virginia, where Cayce himself lived, people wake each morning and move through their days, following patterns established over years, decades, or, as Cayce would suggest, lifetimes. A woman in Denver continues to attract partners who abandon her. A man in Boston repeatedly sabotages his career just as success arrives. A teacher in Austin keeps finding herself in power struggles with authority figures. These aren't random events. Cayce's readings suggest that our souls choose specific challenges before incarnating, creating opportunities for growth. But sometimes, we miss the point. We react from fear rather than love. We blame circumstances rather than seeking understanding. And so, the pattern repeats. The entity is meeting self, Cayce would often say in his readings, indicating that our greatest struggles are reflections of unresolved aspects within our own souls. Think about your own life for a moment. Is there a situation that keeps recurring? Perhaps it's a relationship dynamic, a financial struggle, or a health issue that seems to follow you despite your best efforts to move beyond it. This recognition is the first step toward freedom. The such soul trap isn't a prison imposed from outside. It's a loop created by our own unresolved energies and lessons. Cayce explained that the soul naturally seeks completion and healing across multiple lifetimes. When we fail to integrate the wisdom from an experience, we're drawn back to similar circumstances, creating what feels like a trap or cycle. In Cayce's view, these cycles aren't punishment, but opportunity. Each repetition brings a new chance to respond differently, to choose love over fear, forgiveness over resentment, understanding over judgment. Consider the sensation of déjà vu, that strange feeling that you've experienced something before. Many dismiss it as a neurological hiccup, but Cayce suggested it might be the soul recognizing a pattern from previous incarnations. That moment of recognition is powerful. It's a window between worlds, a chance to see the larger pattern at work. Why do some souls seem trapped while others evolve more quickly? Cayce's reading suggests that it comes down to awareness, choice, and the courage to face ourselves honestly. Those who remain trapped often resist the very lessons they've come to learn, while those who progress embrace them, however difficult they may be. The American psyche, with its emphasis on individual freedom and self-determination, resonates deeply with Cayce's teachings about soul responsibility. We are not victims of fate, but co-creators of our experience. The power to break cycles lies within each of us, not through external change, but through internal transformation. As you reflect on your own recurring patterns, ask yourself, what is the lesson here that I haven't fully embraced? What would love do in this situation instead of fear? How might I respond differently to break the cycle? The soul's journey isn't meant to be an endless loop, but a spiral of growth. Understanding this is the first step toward freedom from the trap many souls experience. The key to liberation isn't escape, it's transformation. The morning fog hangs low over the Shenandoah Valley, not far from where Edgar Cayce himself once walked. In this landscape of rolling hills and quiet streams, it's easier to contemplate the deeper rhythms that govern our existence, the invisible patterns that Cayce described in his thousands of readings given while in trance state. What exactly creates these soul traps that many of us experience? According to Cayce's work, it's not a simple matter of punishment or reward, but rather a complex interplay of cosmic laws and personal choices that spans beyond a single lifetime. Cayce spoke of what he called meeting your karma, which differs significantly from popular notions of karma as simple cause and effect. In his view, karma isn't about punishment, but about completion, the soul's natural desire to resolve imbalances and heal wounds, both those we've inflicted and those we've experienced. Consider the businessman in Seattle who keeps encountering dishonesty in his partnerships. In Cayce's framework, this isn't random bad luck, but a soul-level opportunity to master trust, discernment, and forgiveness. Or the mother in Tennessee who struggles with controlling behavior toward her children, unconsciously repeating patterns from her own childhood and possibly from prior incarnations. In the experiences of each soul, Cayce said in reading 2650 found 1, there comes the opportunity for development. No soul entry, no advent into the material experience is without purpose. The mechanics of the soul trap involve several key elements that Cayce described throughout his readings. First is what he called soul memory, the record of all our experiences across lifetimes, stored not in the conscious mind, but in what he termed the soul mind. Though we rarely access this consciously, it influences our attractions, aversions, talents, and challenges. That unexplainable fear of water, that immediate trust of a stranger, that natural ability with music, all may stem from experiences in previous incarnations. In the American context, we might see this playing out in unexpected ways. The child in Mississippi with an inexplicable passion for Asian culture. The New Yorker with an overwhelming sense of belonging when visiting the Southwest for the first time. The Midwesterner drawn repeatedly to study Civil War history, feeling the emotional pull of that era, as if personally experienced. The second element is what Cayce called soul groups, clusters of souls who incarnate together repeatedly, taking different roles in each other's lives to work through shared lessons. The mother and daughter in Portland, locked in conflict, may have traded roles many times before. The colleagues in Chicago experiencing intense rivalry might be working through power dynamics that began centuries ago. Families are born together, Cayce explained, because they belong together. These soul connections create powerful gravitational forces that can either facilitate growth or reinforce limiting patterns. Third is what Cayce described as ideals, the guiding principles we consciously or unconsciously live by. When our ideals are materialistic, self-centered, or fear-based, we create traps for ourselves. The Wall Street executive measuring his worth purely by financial success. The Ein Mann, social media influencer in Los Angeles, defining herself entirely through others' approval. The politician sacrificing integrity for power. Each sets in motion energies that eventually create suffering and limitation. What is thy ideal? Cayce would often ask in readings. Not what thou wouldst have others be, but what thou wouldst. Be thyself. Perhaps most crucial to understanding the soul trap is Cayce's explanation of the interplay between free will and destiny. In his cosmology, we participate in planning our incarnations between lifetimes, choosing specific challenges for our growth. Yet once here, behind what he called the veil of forgetting, we must rediscover our purpose through intuition, synchronicity, and inner guidance. This creates a profound paradox. We choose our challenges, then forget we chose them, then must remember the purpose behind them to transcend them. Think about a significant challenge in your life right now. What if you had actually selected this very experience? What might be the soul-level purpose behind it? This perspective shift alone can transform a seeming trap into a gateway for growth. The trap tightens when we respond to these chosen challenges with fear, resentment, avoidance, or blame. A woman in Florida repeatedly attracts controlling partners, then resents them without recognizing her own surrender of power. A man in Michigan faces financial hardship, then becomes bitter without examining his relationship with material security. Each reaction reinforces the very pattern they seek to escape. The law of time, as applied to mankind, Cayce said, is a part of the evolution of the soul-mind-spirit entity in its passage through eternity. Our perceived traps exist partly because we experience life linearly, seeing only the immediate circumstances rather than the broader soul journey. Throughout America's diverse spiritual landscape, from traditional churches to metaphysical centers, people seek understanding of these deeper patterns. The language differs. Some speak of sin and redemption, others of energy and consciousness, but the essential human experience remains the same, the sense that we are working through something larger than this single lifetime. Cayce's readings suggest that the soul trap is most powerful when unconscious. The patterns we don't recognize control us most completely. The college student unaware that her perfectionism stems from lifetimes of conditional love, the recovering addict not seeing how his current struggles connect to ancient spiritual questions about embodiment and escape. The first step toward liberation, then, is consciousness, the willingness to look unflinchingly at our patterns and ask what they might be showing us. Not with self-judgment, which only strengthens the trap, but with compassionate curiosity. Know thyself isn't just ancient wisdom. It's practical spiritual technology for breaking cycles that may have persisted across centuries of soul experience. From the urban centers of New York to the desert communities of Arizona, from corporate boardrooms to rural farms, Americans from all walks of life encounter these soul-level challenges. The external circumstances differ, but the interior work remains the same: to recognize the pattern, understand its purpose, and choose a new response. What recurring challenge might be your soul's curriculum in this lifetime? What would change if you viewed it not as bad luck or punishment, but as a sacred opportunity for completion? These questions, approached with sincerity, begin to loosen the mechanics of the trap itself. The late afternoon sun casts long shadows across the landscape. As a storm gathers on the horizon, a fitting metaphor for the soul's journey toward liberation. In this moment of transition between light and darkness, we can perhaps best understand what Edgar Cayce meant when he spoke of the possibility of freedom from recurring patterns. "Man's will is given as a birthright," Cayce stated in Reading 3744-5, and the manner in which he exercises same determines the character of his soul development. This simple yet profound statement holds the key to breaking free from the soul trap that keeps many caught in cycles of repetition and limitation. Across America's diverse spiritual communities, from the Unity churches of the Midwest to the metaphysical bookstores of Sedona, from meditation centers in Massachusetts to prayer groups in Texas, people are awakening to the possibility that their deepest struggles contain the seeds of their greatest growth. But how exactly does one break free from patterns that may have persisted across multiple lifetimes? Cayce's readings offer a comprehensive roadmap for those ready to liberate themselves from these recurring cycles. Unlike many spiritual teachings that offer escape from material reality, Cayce's approach embraces earthly experience as the perfect classroom for soul development. It's not about transcending human experience, but transforming it from within. The first step toward breaking free involves what Cayce called self-knowledge, a deep and honest reckoning with our patterns, motivations, and the hidden aspects of ourselves that we often prefer not to see. This isn't just psychological inventory, but soul-level accounting. Consider the healthcare worker in Baltimore who repeatedly sacrifices her own needs for others, gaining a sense of worthiness through martyrdom. Until she recognizes this pattern and its roots, perhaps in past lives of religious service where self-denial was valorized, she remains caught in a cycle that depletes rather than fulfills her. Or the retired teacher in San Diego who cannot maintain intimate relationships, always finding reasons to withdraw when others come too close. His pattern might reach back to betrayals in previous incarnations, creating a soul memory of pain associated with vulnerability that now operates outside his conscious awareness. The more knowledge a soul gains, Cayce said, the more responsible it is for what it does with that knowledge. This responsibility begins with truthful self-examination, not to judge ourselves harshly, but to see clearly what has remained hidden. Have you ever noticed yourself reacting in ways that seem out of proportion to the situation at hand? The executive in Chicago who flies into rage over a minor scheduling error. The artist in Portland who spirals into despair when receiving mild criticism. These exaggerated responses often signal what Cayce would call soul memories being activated. Old wounds seeking healing, old patterns asking for recognition. The practice of mindful self-observation becomes essential here. Not analyzing or judging, but simply witnessing our reactions, emotions, and habitual responses with compassionate awareness. In today's language, we might call this mindfulness. Cayce spoke of it as developing the listening self that can observe without immediately reacting. The second crucial element in breaking free involves what Cayce frequently emphasized as the transformation of ideals. The mind is the builder, he often stated, explaining that our conscious and unconscious ideals shape our experiences more powerfully than external circumstances. A middle-aged man in Virginia has spent decades pursuing financial security only to find himself constantly facing unexpected expenses and setbacks. Cayce might suggest examining whether material security is truly his highest ideal, or whether his soul is calling him toward different values that would better serve his evolution. A woman in Minnesota devotes herself to pleasing others at the expense of her own truth, wondering why she feels increasingly empty despite doing everything right. Her journey toward freedom might require cultivating self-honesty as a higher ideal than external approval. What one thinks continually, they become, Cayce explained. This isn't simplistic positive thinking, but recognition of the creative power of consciousness itself. By consciously choosing ideals that align with soul growth, rather than ego comfort, truth over convenience, love over fear, service over self-interest, we begin reprogramming the very matrix of our experience. This transformation of ideals must be practical, not merely philosophical. The university professor in Massachusetts may intellectually value compassion while still operating from judgment in daily interactions. The business owner in Texas might espouse integrity while making small compromises that undermine his stated values. Cayce emphasized that ideals must be lived to become transformative. Perhaps the most powerful catalyst for breaking free from soul traps comes through what Cayce called application, the consistent practice of spiritual principles in everyday situations. Knowledge remains theoretical until applied. Wisdom emerges through lived experience. To know and not to do, Cayce warned, is not to know at all. This application takes countless forms across the American landscape. The recovering alcoholic in Nebraska, who practices rigorous honesty after lifetimes of self-deception. The corporate lawyer in New York, who incorporates daily meditation and service into a previously imbalanced life. The single mother in Florida, who chooses forgiveness over bitterness toward an absent co-parent, breaking what might be an ancient cycle of resentment. Application isn't always dramatic. Often it's found in small, consistent choices, choosing patience when irritation arises, practicing gratitude amid difficulty, extending kindness without expectation of return. These seemingly minor decisions can disrupt patterns that have persisted for centuries of soul experience. Each soul in entering the material experience does so for those purposes of advancement, towards that awareness of being fully conscious of the oneness with the creative forces, Cayce explained. This advancement doesn't happen through theoretical understanding, but through lived demonstration. A particularly powerful application Cayce frequently recommended was service to others, not from obligation, but from recognition of our fundamental interconnectedness. The retired executive in Washington who mentors at-risk youth, the homemaker in Alabama who creates community support for isolated elderly neighbors, the tech professional in California who volunteers technical skills to environmental causes. Through such service, we often find ourselves healing aspects of our own soul history while helping others, creating what Cayce might call grace points that can accelerate our liberation from old patterns. Dreams offer another pathway for breaking free from soul traps. Cayce, known for his own remarkable trance abilities, emphasized that during sleep, the soul communicates more directly, offering guidance, healing, and perspective beyond ordinary consciousness. Dreams are today's answers to tomorrow's questions, he famously stated. By paying attention to dream symbols, emotions, and scenarios, recording them, reflecting on them, working with them, we access a level of soul awareness that can illuminate our blind spots and reveal next steps. The business analyst in Detroit, who repeatedly dreams of being unprepared for exams, might be processing perfectionism and self-judgment that extends beyond this lifetime. The nurse in Oregon, whose dreams continually feature water, may be connecting with soul memories of previous experiences, perhaps even Atlantean incarnations that Cayce often described in his readings. Physical well-being also plays a crucial role in breaking free from soul traps. Cayce was revolutionary in connecting spiritual development with bodily health, offering thousands of readings on holistic healing. The body, he explained, is not separate from spiritual growth, but an instrument for it. The spirit is the life, the mind is the builder, and the physical is the result, he stated repeatedly, suggesting that physical symptoms often reflect soul-level disharmonies seeking resolution. The office worker in Kansas with chronic throat tension might be carrying the energetic residue of lifetimes where speaking truth was dangerous. The dancer in New York whose recurring knee injuries force her to slow down might be receiving a physiological message about a soul-level need for different forms of expression by addressing both the physical symptoms and their potential soul-level meanings. Through appropriate healthcare, mindful body practices, and energetic approaches Cayce often recommended, we create conditions for comprehensive healing that extends beyond the current incarnation. Perhaps most essential to breaking free is what Cayce described as realigning with divine purpose. Each soul, he explained, incarnates with specific intentions for growth and service. When we live unconsciously, pulled by cultural conditioning and ego desires rather than soul purpose, we perpetuate our entrapment. The mid-career professional in Atlanta who feels increasingly empty, despite outward success, may be experiencing the soul's call to more meaningful work. The retiree in Maine who can't seem to relax into leisure might be sensing unfulfilled soul purposes, still seeking expression. Each entity enters with a mission, Cayce stated. We are all here for a purpose, and there never has been a soul born without a purpose and an opportunity for that purpose to be realized. Finding and fulfilling this purpose becomes central to liberation. This often requires courage, the willingness to make choices that may appear irrational by conventional standards, but align with deeper knowing. The successful attorney who leaves law practice to teach children, the comfortable suburbanite who simplifies radically to pursue creative or humanitarian work, the organizational leader who chooses ethical principles over expediency, even at personal cost. Such choices aren't always dramatic career changes. Sometimes the greatest alignment with purpose comes through transformed attitude within existing circumstances, bringing greater presence, integrity, or compassion to current roles and relationships. What would it mean to fully align your current life with your soul's purpose? This question, contemplated deeply, begins to dissolve the very structures of limitation that constitute the soul trap. As we integrate these practices, self-knowledge, transformation of ideals, consistent application, dream work, physical well-being, and alignment with purpose, we gradually loosen the grip of recurring patterns. The process isn't usually sudden awakening, but patient unfolding, with periods of breakthrough and integration. Patience is the mother of character, Cayce reminded those who sought quick transformation. Liberation from soul traps that may have persisted across many lifetimes requires compassionate persistence, the willingness to continue growing despite setbacks and challenges. Across America's spiritual landscape, in meditation rooms and church basements, in therapy offices and healing centers, in everyday kitchens and workplaces, this patient work of soul liberation continues. Each person who breaks free from limiting patterns creates ripples that extend far beyond their individual experience, contributing to the collective evolution Cayce envisioned. The journey doesn't end with personal liberation. As souls break free from their specific traps, Cayce suggested they naturally move toward greater service, becoming way showers for others, still caught in similar patterns. The former addict who guides others toward recovery. The person who has healed relationship patterns becoming a counselor or teacher. The individual who has transcended materialism, helping others find deeper fulfillment. What is done in the physical is a manifestation of the spiritual forces that are at work, Cayce explained. Our personal liberation becomes the groundwork for broader transformation. As the storm clouds gather and the light shifts on the horizon, consider your own journey. What patterns might you be ready to transcend? What soul-level completion awaits your conscious participation? What freedom might be possible if you embrace the challenge of your recurring lessons with new awareness? The soul trap exists only until recognized. Once seen with clarity and addressed with courage, it transforms from prison to doorway, from limitation to opportunity. The key has always been within your reach, in your choices, your awareness, your willingness to grow, in the quiet wisdom of your own heart, in the gentle nudges of intuition, in the synchronicities that pepper your path. The way forward is continuously revealed. The journey from entrapment to freedom isn't found in escaping your challenges, but in embracing them fully with all the wisdom, compassion, and courage your soul has gathered across its long journey. What step will you take today?